Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for Eye on Africa with me, Georgia Calvin-Smith. Tonight in Uganda, parents of children still missing since a school dorm was attacked offer up their DNA in search for their missing loved ones. Also, the idea of hope away from home is central to this year's celebration, World Refugee Day. We head to Burundi, where hundreds of thousands of returning nationals who fled political instability under the late president are finding hope only goes so far in rebuilding their lives. And we learn of the rags to riches story of one Ghanaian designer breathing new life into the second-hand market, transforming some of the mountain of used clothes shipped into the country. But first, in the wake of one of their country's biggest ever massacres, many desperate parents in Uganda are still trying to identify their children from amongst the remains. 42 bodies have been recovered since dorms at the Lubirira Secondary School were set alight and attacked last Friday. Many of the dead are unrecognizable. Laura Bershteka has more.
Outside the Mpondwe police station, parents were anxiously waiting for news of their children. Days after the horrific attack on a school in western Uganda, many still didn't know whether they should grieve or remain hopeful.
As a parent, mine is not yet found. So I'm still waiting. I'm there in the safe space, whether the rebels have taken her or we don't know whether they have killed her in the way.
The barbaric attack was one of Uganda's deadliest in recent years. Suspected Islamist militants stormed the Lubirira Secondary School on Friday, setting fire to a dorm and attacking victims with knives and machetes. Authorities recovered 42 bodies so far, but could only identify half. Another 6 students are thought to have been abducted. Police has since called on relatives to come forward and provide DNA samples to help with the identification process.
20 were claimed, the ones which are easily identifiable. Those ones who got banned, unfortunately, beyond the condition, we are using scientific method of using the DNA.
20 suspected collaborators were arrested for questioning on Monday, including the school's head teacher. Ugandan authorities are blaming the attack on the Allied Democratic Forces, a group affiliated to the Islamic State, which is also active in neighboring DRC.
Nigeria's new president has continued to clean house. Bola Tinubu removed all of the country's security chiefs and replaced them. He'd promised to make security a priority in the face of the scale of violent trends across several regions in Nigeria. Sam Olokoya has more.
The security chiefs sacked include the heads of the army, the air force, the navy and the police. They have already been replaced. These recent changes have been made so the president can better address the growing insecurity in Nigeria. During his inauguration, President Tinubu said security will be a key focus of his administration. Nigeria faces several key security challenges. In the northeast, the military have for more than 13 years been battling jihadist groups like Boko Haram. The jihadist insurgency has left more than 350,000 people dead, while 3 million others are displaced. Across the northwest and north-central parts of the country, armed groups known as bandits are having a field day, robbing and killing people. The bandits are also behind the mass abductions that have taken place in the region, including those of school children. Besides insecurity, President Tinubu is also under pressure to address several other pressing national issues like corruption and the declining economy. The president, who is less than 1 month in office, knows he has to move fast to address the numerous problems he inherited from his predecessor. Running the country under the scrutiny of an impatient public that have suffered several years of insecurity and poverty, President Tinubu knows he cannot afford to fail.
Sam Olokoya there for us. Now, France's president has asked to go to a summit for the group of the world's leading emerging market economies. Known as the BRICS, it's made up of Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. Although it's uncommon for other heads of state to attend, France's Emmanuel Macron wants to be there when the group meets in South Africa in August. The summit has already sparked controversy as Russian leader Vladimir Putin is subject to an international criminal court arrest warrant. And Pretoria technically would be bound to arrest him should he turn up to the BRICS summit. The decision over Macron's possible attendance lies with South African President Cyril Ramaphosa. June 20th marks World Refugee Day. In Burundi, hundreds of thousands of people who fled their country in 2015 amidst political turmoil have started returning from Rwanda and Tanzania. Despite the hope carrying them home, many are finding settling into what was once familiar has proved to be more difficult than expected. Clément de Roma has more.
Brick by brick, villagers in northern Burundi construct a public building. In 2015, thousands fled the region following a violent crackdown on political demonstrations. Burundi descended into chaos. 400,000 people sought refuge in neighboring countries. Anasiat is a farmer who took shelter in Tanzania for several years. She has recently chosen to come back.
I returned to Burundi after hearing that problems were over, and when I got here, I realized that this situation is indeed better.
Over the past 5 years, 210,000 people have returned to Burundi. Yet, many still rely on UN humanitarian aid to survive. Clementine is struggling to feed her children. She spent several years in a Rwandan refugee camp before returning home.
Life here is a constant struggle for me. Before, in the camp, I was always given food when my monthly stocks were over. It was impossible to starve. But here, when I don't have enough to eat, I have to go cultivate my neighbors' fields so that they can give me enough to feed my kids.
260,000 Burundian refugees are still scattered across neighboring countries, fearing poverty and a shortage of farmland upon their return. The UN supports their repatriation.
Most of the local economy here is based on agriculture. With the population density of the country, there are difficulties between the number of people and the land available for agriculture. So we support them in this process to reacquire land.
Many exiled Burundians fear that they could be labeled as political adversaries upon their return. In 2023, the UN condemned the suppression of dissenting voices in the country. But the government insists that returnees have nothing to worry about.
The reasons that forced these Burundians to flee are no longer here. Some of the people who fled are not well informed about the real situation in the country. There are some Burundians abroad who are acting in bad faith and who continue to fuel negative rhetoric to stop the exiled Burundians from returning.
Burundi has set its sights on repatriating at least 70,000 more refugees in 2023.
Africa's biggest carrier is celebrating a stronger than expected rebound from the damage done by the pandemic. Despite the massive drop-off in passenger demand, Ethiopia Airlines managed to tweak their business model enough to stay in the black, and it expects to keep flying high. This despite the challenges still being faced by the sector. Clotilde Tazar tells us more.
It's rush hour at Addis Abeba's airport. Ousmane Conte flies all over the world for his job and favors African airlines.
We have to promote the African continent. With all the efforts that Ethiopian Airlines and all the other African airlines are making, I'm happy to contribute in my own way.
African Airlines lost 3.2 billion euros between 2020 and 2022. Some of them, like Kenya Airways, are undergoing structural changes. On the continent, the industry is particularly struggling due to more expensive fuel prices and costly fundraising. Despite this, Ethiopian Airlines has forecast profits of 868 million euros for 2022. It owes its success in part to stable management and a patriotic vision.
Ever since I was a young girl, I used to watch the advertisements. So the cabin crews, you see the cabin crews, the pilots and everything. You can see that they were happy and satisfied and proud to be working for this airline. So I wanted to be part of that and do my part in contributing to my country and working for the national flag carrier airline.
The state-controlled company copes with economic instability by building solid business management. It is based on an integrated model covering many services linked to the industry.
The whole of Addis Airport is managed by Ethiopian Airlines, and they also have related activities such as a hotel business, which reduces certain costs. Of the many people in transit here, most of them stay at the Skylight Hotel, which belongs to Ethiopian Airlines.
Ethiopian Airlines has stepped up its strategic and financial partnerships with sub-regional airlines such as Sky and Air Malawi. It defends the project of a single African air market, giving airlines free access to signatory countries. But there are still obstacles in the way, including lack of political will, protectionism, and excessively high taxes, which weigh heavily on passengers.
And finally head to Ghana, where one designer is breathing new life into the second-hand market, scaling some of the mountains of used clothes shipped to the country every year. Every week, 50 million items arrive from the West, much of it of poor quality. Olivia Bizo tells us more.
These clothes may be part of Ghanaian fashion designer David Boydo's new collection, but they were made using old clothes discarded by the West.
So as you can see, these are made from 100% pieces that people in Europe and America don't want and has thrown it away. And they throw it to Africa. And that's why we pick them and make them in good use.
David regularly goes to second-hand markets like this one to find materials for his creations. But with fast fashion on the rise, the quantity and quality of the items he finds here is dropping.
The quality keeps going down. Brands want to make money. They are not concerned about the quality control. So from here, where is it going? It's going to a landfill. It's going to the sea.
Local environmentalist organisations have long been calling for brands to pay for the massive textile waste they create.
We're just trying to get a database for brands that are responsible, because then it seems like no brand wants to be blamed for this mess, and they will claim we are not part of this, our clothes don't go this far. We need to show them proof that yes, H&M, yes, Adidas, yes, Nike, yes, Mark & Spencer, you are causing harm to Ghana. Yeah.
Each week, around 15 million items of used clothes arrive in Ghana from Western countries, with about 40% of them ending up as waste.
Well, that's it for Eye on Africa for now. Thanks for joining us. Do so again. Till then, take care.
In 2018, South Sudan experienced a rare moment of hope. After 5 years of civil war, peace seemed within reach. But what is the situation today?
People are living in insecurity. You cannot go where you can work, you can get something for your family.
Some 35,000 displaced people live in camps, trying to survive as best they can.
When people enter in the war, up to this time, people are still suffering a lot. Crisis of anger, the poverty, and then the killing.
However, in Juba, some are hopeful for the future.
I think this is the only place where you can get all South Sudanese.
But this enclave remains an exception in a ravaged country. Juba Revisited on France 24 and France24.com.